If you're a lineman in charge of keeping the lights on, Grainger understands that you go to great lengths, and sometimes heights, to ensure the power is always flowing. Which is why you can count on Grainger for professional-grade products and next-day delivery, so you have everything you need to get the job done. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Golf Talk Live. I'm your host, Ted Odorico, and welcome to another Thursday evening edition of Golf Talk Live. And, of course, we are live here every Thursday night from 6 to 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. That's 7 to 9 Eastern Standard Time, for those of you on the East Coast, and I believe 4 to 6 for those of you in Pacific Time. So, but we're all on most of us are on, well, some of us are on Central and some of us are on Eastern Time tonight on the panel. So we'll have a great discussion. But let me just remind everybody, again, we are live from 6 to 8 Central. If you are just tuning in for the first time, obviously you've managed to find us here on blogtalkradio.com. For those of you that want to pass on the link, go to blogtalkradio.com, go up in the search key and type in Golf Talk Live, and that will bring you to the main page. And if you happen to not be able to join us live tonight, you can go there and catch one of the archived programs that have been previously recorded for your listening pleasure. And those of you that are joining us live tonight, welcome and thank you for tuning in. For those of you that want to call in or speak at any time to the guests or myself, you can do so by calling area code 646-716-4667, or you can certainly email or text if you want your questions to ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. And for those of you that might be interested, if you're in the golf industry and you want to come on the show and chat with us for a little bit, whether it be as a guest interview or maybe you want to jump in on some of the Coaches Corner panels, there's still some room as the year progresses on, so you're welcome to do that. Again, you can reach out to me personally at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. Of course, I update everything on social media. You can go to my Facebook page, facebook.com/Golf Talk Live blog. Make sure you add blog on the end there, please. And while you're there, if you haven't done so already, I certainly appreciate it if you would like the page while you're visiting. But I do keep the program updates on there and who's going to be coming on the show and that each and every week. So make sure you do that. And also, for those of you that follow me on Twitter, go to Ted and Buck CEO. That's Ted and Buck and then CEO in capitals. And thank you for all of the recent followers. And thank you also to those for sharing the tweets and getting the information out there about the program. Thank you very much, as always. Pardon me. And for those of you that want to check out my website, you can go to www.golftalkliveblog.com, and I usually have everything updated there as well. And some great products of individuals that have been on the program that have had some great, interesting products that I wanted to share. So I've got some of those up there as well. But again, thank you for tuning in tonight, and we're going to jump right in here. Let me just introduce the Coaches Corner panel here in just a minute. And a little bit later in the show, I'm going to be joined by Katherine Roberts. She's the founder and president of Yoga for Golfers. We're going to talk a little bit about yoga. for golf, and also some other areas that she's expanding her business out to. And I think you'll find it a very interesting show tonight, so make sure you tune in for the whole program tonight. But again, first let me remind everybody that we are live from 6 to 8, and if you want to follow us also, you can go to itunes.com, or you can listen in at stitcher.com. Again, I've got a great panel tonight. This is the first Coach's Corner I've had back in a couple of weeks. I was on holidays in Vegas last week and managed to win. Believe it or not, I actually took some money out of Las Vegas last week, so that was always enjoyable to come home without a broke pocket. But got a great panel tonight. This is the first week back. And Mr. John Hughes, of course, he's a PGA Master Professional, also the Vice President and Secretary of the North Florida PGA Section. And he was the recipient of the 2013 PGA of America Horton Smith Award. Always great to have John on the panel. Next up, of course, is Tim Kramer. He is the president and founder of Spirit of Golf, LLC, and he's been on the panel, of course, a number of times. And Tim is a visionary peak performance coach and consultant based in Stuart, Florida, but I understand he's up and around Jupiter, Florida tonight. He's the president, again, and founder of Spirit of Golf, LLC, which is a program that utilizing innovative and pioneering mind-body coaching techniques that help participants, both athletes and non-athletes, access peak mind states for greater success, enjoying both golf and life, and I always love to support that. And last but certainly not least, a woman that has really brought a lot to the game, and that it would be Jamie Leno-Zimron, and she's an LPGA Class A teacher professional. She's also a 5th degree Aikido black belt, so watch out. A psychologist, she's a corporate speaker and consultant, and she's also the creator of the Ki Golf and the Ki Way, Inc. She's also a body worker. Ladies and gentlemen, hard to believe that I actually got all of that out, but welcome to Golf Talk Live and Coach's Corner.
Thanks, Ted. Glad to be here.
I was a lot to get out there, and I apologize. I probably ate up half the show, but I managed to get it out. All right, guys, I talked about off air that I wanted to focus a little bit more on both the mental and the physical side of the game. And the particular reason why I chose that, as we discussed, this last week's British Open was certainly wonderful for most of the players out there. They had a good Open. It was very interesting to watch as a spectator as well. Zach Johnson, of course, congratulations to him for winning his second major. And but there was some interesting things that had actually come out of this, and this is what sort of prompted me, and I'll explain a little bit why I want to do that. Jordan Spieth, of course, made a good run at the Open as well, and of course he won the earlier in the year, he won the Masters tournament and also the U.S. Open. So there were a lot of hope and expectations coming into this Open, hoping that he was going to have major number 3 and well onto his way of winning of course, the Grand Slam. But what was interesting about it was not so much the play and what happened to him or what didn't happen to him, but there was actually some negative feedback about his play that came out, and I read a few excerpts through social media, and I was really kind of surprised at that. I mean, these guys obviously play at a high level, and there's a lot that goes into preparation for this game, and that's what I want to talk about. So, John, I want to start with you, and then Tim, and then Jamie, and then I'll flip the panel around a little bit and ask some other questions to each of you differently. But John, I want to start with you first. What do some of these guys do mentally to prepare to go into a tournament such as a major like the British Open?
Well, the guys I've worked with in the past, when they're preparing for any kind of tournament, they're trying to keep their minds clear of distractions, trying to keep their minds focused on the task at hand. When you're talking about a major, you're talking about the creme de la creme in the field, or at least that's what all 4 of them represent. And does it take any more focus? Some will argue yes, some will argue no. I'm of the opinion, no. It's another golf tournament. If you put too much pressure on yourself, then it's going to come back to possibly bite you, because you may be playing outside of yourself. And one of the criticisms I think you're talking about is Jordan Spieth not getting to the UK in time, that he should have been there prepping more mentally. I don't know what's better mentally preparation-wise other than winning. I got to respect that he kept his commitment to the John Deere, but it didn't necessarily prevent him from prepping for the Open Championship. When it comes to physically, yes, that could have been something, but I think these guys are world-class athletes, and they overcome a lot of that much quicker than the average human does. So does it wear on you mentally? Well, sure, you got to be physically ready to go for you to be mentally ready to go. But overall, I think what you see there are the people that can mentally prepare and do it at the highest of levels day in and day out. And that's why they are in the field of majors. That's why they are the creme de la creme.
Right. Well said. Tim, just to expand a little bit more on that, obviously you've worked with both some athletes and non-athletes alike. Do you agree with that? Do you think that really, obviously majors are important and I think we shouldn't play them down, but at the same time, it is another golf tournament and you have to go into it as such and not get yourself too worked up. So what are some things that you try to do with working with some of your athletes to get them mentally prepared for that big tournament that they might have coming up?
Yeah, well, the thing that I think that we do the most is that we, the thing that I coach is, and it's semantics perhaps, but I like looking at it, golf as an emotional game rather than a mental game. See, I think it's the three components. It's the physical, it's the mental, and the emotional. Physical, of course, is obvious enough. Mental, I view more as processing type decisions. Do I hit the 7-iron? Do I hit the 6-iron? Where are the bunkers, et cetera, et cetera. But to me, it's the emotions that are the key components. We know that the emotions determine how the body moves. We know that the emotions really set up, the mental part of the game. The decisions that we make are really based, by and large, upon, how we, the mood that we're in. We're in a good mood. We certainly make much more stable decisions. The body moves more freely. I loved what John had to say, though, and I totally agree with. As a peak performance coach, and I was working with a really talented junior up in Ohio last week, and we were walking down the fairway in a practice round. He was talking about a big tournament coming up. And one of the things that I said was, I just think we got to get out of the mindset that there's big tournaments and not big tournaments. It's a golf shot. And it's our ability to really be focused in the present moment for this shot at hand. And when we do that, everything just takes care of itself. But when we start making it bigger than life, we do introduce tension into the body. And so I just think that, it certainly is fun to watch the majors and to, in some ways, give them more importance. But as a coach, I don't want my players giving anything more importance or any less important. It just is really about being very present and focused for the shot at hand and in a great physical space, in a great mental space, and a great emotional space, shot by shot.
Exactly, and well said as well, Tim. Jamie, you obviously have an additional perspective to this for a couple of reasons. You obviously play golf, you teach golf, but you're also very involved in martial arts, which obviously takes not only a lot of physical demands, but also a lot of mental demands as well. And it's really a way of calming the spirit and bringing the mind, body, and spirit together. So I want you to maybe talk a little bit about that and some of the great things that you're doing with your students, and helping them to not only prepare for maybe a tournament that might be coming up or a big event that might be coming up, but also really helping them prepare for life.
Sure, and I just want to say it's great hearing my panel members here, or my show members talking, because I just couldn't agree more. I wanted to talk a little bit about a story from the Masters, right, the martial arts Masters, and that I tell my students and then I work with them on. And it's apropos of the idea that, it's a major, it seems like something else or something bigger or more important, but really it isn't. If we, as a coach, we really want our players and we want ourselves to be the same really throughout, and not act differently. So here's the story. I noticed that Aikido teachers of mine, some of the great senseis who would come from Japan through the years, they wouldn't know a lot of English, and they kept repeating this word. It's onaji, and I don't speak a lot of Japanese, they would say onaji. You see onaji. You see it's onaji. And I finally realized that onaji means the same. They would even say onaji, same, same, same. And so the idea is, and I tell it to my students, if we could be in this state where we are continuously working to be centered, to be balanced, to calm or restore our emotions or our thoughts when they move into what I've come to call kind of a stress mess place, where we get under the effects of the biochemistry, the neurology of stress, and therefore we aren't able to make the swings we might make. But if we can know how to recalm and center the system and get back to this kind of state where we aren't acting or reacting differently to, for example, even just our students who say, well, how come I can make a great practice swing and then you put the ball in front of me? Or how come I was great on the range, but I wasn't great, on the course? Or how come I'm great on the course, but all of a sudden there's $5 or $10 on it? I'm like, how come I'm different? And the idea is, how could I be the same? And the masters are teaching you see same. And so if we can be in this place and regulate ourselves so that we can remain kind of the same, I think that's something that's really important in our training. And, the idea that what's the most important shot in golf? This one, the present one, the one you've got in front of you, and not and it's not different. It's not different because it's in a major. It's not different because it's got money on it or people watching it, or you know what I'm saying? So I think that bringing these kinds of thoughts and concepts in, and then practices to help us remain in that same place or find what's our own personal feeling and sense of that balance-centered zone, so that when we get out of it because of circumstances, we can get back into it, and so that ultimately we can bring ourselves to whatever situation, whatever moment it is, in that place. And I actually work with business leaders, just in leadership or giving a talk, as speakers, so that we could be in that state.
Excellent points, all three of you, and very well said, Jamie. Thank you. The next question that I really want to ask all of you, and Tim, I'm going to start with you this time, and then Jamie, and then we'll go back, finish with John, and then we'll rotate it again. Obviously, we're going to experience some failures along the way. I'm sure there were plenty of players throughout the British Open, as an example, that maybe hit a few bad shots here and there, and they experience sort of a small failure, if you will. Let's talk about, Tim, if you will, what some of the better players and even some of the amateur players, the differences in how the better players are able to get back up on the horse, so to speak, and able to move forward and on to the next shot, as Jamie just pointed out. And why do the amateurs struggle so much when they have a difficult shot? Why does it seem to last for 3 or 4 holes, or even maybe a whole round? Tim, that was for you.
It's a great question. The one thing that I would say to start with, and I love this panel because it's just, I think we're some great energy going here. The one word that I would avoid, though, when I'm coaching is the word failure. I think that we can't look at them as failures. They're growth experiences, and I like to say that behind every perceived failure is the launching of a new desire, that you wouldn't have the desire to improve if you didn't have the squirrely shots. So we kind of need the squirrely shots. We don't like them, but we do kind of need them in order to launch our games forward. The real work that I teach through Spirit of Golf, though, is really getting emotions stable and strong and out in front of performance. I think that's the missing link that I see the most, is that we're kind of conditional lovers on the golf course. If my golf shots are good, it's kind of like, a partner or a spouse or whatever, well, I will love you, dear partner of mine, as long as you behave like I want you to behave. And, of course, the problem is they're not going to behave that long before something's kind of upsetting us. So really the goal, I believe, with athletes who are maybe the most stable out there is they're able to keep emotions out in front and maybe even detached from performance, that they're very strong and they're very stable emotionally. this is what I see with so many of the newer, younger players coming out, is they seem to exhibit this stuff in ways they're not volatile like the older guys. And I do think that I really do see a shift, and I'm sensing a shift in what I'm seeing. But I think that to me is the single most important thing that I teach my players, is that we've got to get emotions stable. Now, the other thing that I like to point out is that, as with all energy, and emotions are really just energy and motion, that with all emotions, there's momentum to that energy too. And so players will often say, well, okay, so you're angry out there, what do you deal with the anger, or what do you do with the frustration? And it's never a very satisfying answer, but the reality is we have to keep it from getting so explosive to begin with, because once it does, there's kind of such a strong momentum of unwanted emotion that it's going to take a few holes, and hopefully not bogeys and too many double bogeys and triple bogeys, before we shoot ourselves in the foot. So the best way to deal with frustration and anger, again, not always popular, but you just don't go there. You train yourself in a way that you just let it roll off your back. I'm fond of saying you're never going to like a bad golf shot, but you can train yourself to not let it emotionally affect you.
Again, well said, and so true. Jamie, I want to just, again, as I always do, like to add just a little bit of a different spin, because Tim raised a very interesting point here about not allowing some of the negative emotions and energy, if you will, sort of take root. But the truth of the matter is, we are going to, from time to time, sometimes more often than we would like, we're going to hit some bad shots. So we've just hit a really, nasty shot, for lack of better words. And it's so bad that, boy, I'll tell you that the blood's boiling and everything, the pressure is building up, the steam's coming out the ears. Do I expel that in one sort of short burst, or how do I manage that?
Well, great questions, and I'm so glad that we're having a focus here on emotions, because as Tim said, the emotions are really a missing link. We talk so much about the mental game. We look at the physical game, and we are such emotional creatures, and our emotions really often, quote unquote, get the best of us. So, I think first of all, we have kind of different personality types, and some people are a lot easier, calmer, quieter emotionally. They don't get so rattled. Other people are more volatile, should we say, and feel their emotions, need to express their emotions more. So, that's kind of a personality thing. We get the cool customer, we get the hot-tempered people, whatever. So, first of all, I think it helps to know yourself more, know your students more, your players more, and so know what you're dealing with. That being said, everybody needs to know how to manage their emotions. Having been a psychotherapist for many, many years, and also a sports counselor and all, first of all, I think that it doesn't help to deny what you're feeling. To manage your feelings doesn't mean to pretend that they're not there, or to just kind of be so zen about them that there's sort of a sense of denial. It helps to know what you feel. And let's say you are really upset. One technique I really love is, okay, you're allowed to be upset, feel it all the way for 20 seconds or for the next 20 yards of your walk. And then you need to learn to release it. So it's like, okay, let it be there, accept it, feel it all, and then the next step is to time limit it, and then the next step is release it. And I think we all need to know how to release, how to really let go, so that we then, rather than being what emotional intelligence people call hijacked by our emotions, what we are able to do is to take control of our emotions, take control of ourselves, and then return to what we can call the zone, sort of a personal centered balance zone, that each person needs to know what that is for themselves, what it feels like, and have their own roadmap back to it, because we're going to get out of it all the time. I think there's a bumper sticker around, I don't want to swear on, use a bad word on the radio, but, bad things, stress happens and shift needs to happen, right?
Yeah,
so we need, when the bad stuff happens, we need to know how to shift and so we have to recognize it, accept it, feel it time limited, okay, and then have that ability to let it go, know what your own personal roadmap is. And I like to use the body a lot. When we get that kind of heavy feeling in the lower belly that we call centering, that connects down into the legs and the feet, we call that grounding. And this also counteracts the sort of up in the chest breathing, the fear breathing. When we experience fear or anger, we tend to tighten, we tend to go up. When we can let go and even let go physically, come down, get heavy in the body, there are techniques, and we learn them in martial arts, that literally counteract fear. So, so long as we equip ourselves and our players or our clients, our students with those capabilities in their own roadmap back to their centered, clear state, and we're also aware that we're calming the biochemistry of emotional hijacking, that makes a big difference. And it comes out in our physical performance.
Right, and both great points that you make, and Tim as well. And the reason why I wanted to, as I said, to talk about this tonight, and John, I'm going to sort of lump this together for you here in just a second, but a lot of people don't understand exactly just how much your emotions can affect your golf game. I mean, I'm sure there's some people out there listening tonight that are probably thinking, okay, well, this is great, and it's a kind of interesting discussion, but how is it going to help my golf game? How are my emotions? I hit a bad shot, big deal. I'll get over it, and I'm not going to lose sleep over it. But the truth of the matter is, I would say a very high percentage of most amateur golfers, particularly, and there are even a few professionals that still linger around that can show their temper. And one comes to mind is Rory Sabatini, who is always very vocal on that on the course. I'm sure he managed his emotions a little differently than some of the other players, but he was always very vocal. And that maybe was a way that he expelled that negative energy, whether it be because of bad shots or whether it was because of slow play. So, John, bringing this question sort of to close with you, there's obviously some bad shots are going to be out there. We've got to deal with it. We've got to handle it both with our emotions, but we also have to make adjustments and changes without really changing too much. So how do you do that with some of your students when you see them or they've come to you with a problem of, hey, I played in a tournament last week and I really struggled and I just feeling really bad about my game. What are some things that you do to try and lift them back up and get them back on a better path?
Well, Tim and Jamie hit on a lot of great points when it comes to positive energies and being able to release emotion. We are creatures of emotion. I fully agree. And if you're not emotional about anything you do, you lack the passion, you lack the care. So when you talk about a Rory Sabatini or a Billy Horschel recently with his outburst about conditions, that's somebody who cares. And sometimes that doesn't come through the media that we consume now, whether it be on a phone, a tablet, a computer, or even on TV. So what we all have to understand as coaches, as mentors, is that someone who comes to us with these kinds of concerns, they care. What we have to do is take that care and not necessarily redirect it, but embrace it, understand it, and have a true understanding of where that caring comes from. Is it because they're trying to do their personal best? Are they self-competitive and golf allows that to happen? Are they trying to be ultra-competitive at the highest level? But ultimately, we as coaches and more likely the players that we deal with have to deal with things realistically. Yes, there's fear, whether it's perceived, whether it's virtual, whether it's real, there's fear. But the only way to conquer that, as many quotes have said before, is just to conquer it, to deal with it. And what I see most amateurs not doing, that most of the elite pros do, is practice with consequence, practice with the fear of potentially using that bad word, failing. I use positive terms, just like Tim and Jamie do. I use the term great miss or good miss a lot, whether you're a 100 average score or you're playing subpar golf and you're trying to make it to the next level. Because at the end of the day, golf is a game of misses. And when I can have someone understand that, when we can all have someone understand that, that goes a long way. But we have to understand what those misses are before we get to the golf course and practice with some circumstance. Hogan's very famous for that. Some really neat stories about him practicing with purpose and practicing with consequence and not leaving the practice area. and that was the consequence. He couldn't leave until he achieved certain things, until he experienced certain things, and that's why he was so mentally tough. As people tell the stories about Hogan, with Tiger, you can go down the list of all the top players, the number one ranked players in the world, and at some point in their career, they embrace the fact that you have to practice with consequence, practice at the practice facility, practice rounds with consequence. And when you're able to do that, you're now better prepared for those shots that may not go your way. If you're not practicing with consequence, you're expecting, and one of the things I always tell all my pupils, all the clients I've ever taught, is if expectations lead to one thing, and that is failure. Expectations are goals without plans and process. They're just dreams. And in order to get over the dreams and deal with reality, when you know that the consequence is, hey, I don't get paid this week if I don't make the cut, or I can't have a beer. I'm gonna limit myself to 2 beers instead of 3 when I'm done with practice, or whatever the consequence should be. It should be something that is emotional. It could be fearful, and it does hurt, because as you practice dealing with this hurt and this fear, whether you're trying to win your club championship in your flight or trying to get through Q school, when you're practicing dealing with this, you're much more prepared when it happens, and you're able to circumnavigate through it within yourself and not trying to be somebody else.
Well said, and for those of you tuning into the program, if you didn't need a better reason to understand why John Hughes is a master professional, there is a great example of why he is. Very well said, John, and some great points. I believe that, Jamie, I think that, or Tim, I think we started off this round with you, if I'm not mistaken, and correct me if I'm wrong. So, Jamie, I believe you're next in line here to start things off. I want to go back to the British Open just very quickly, and there's really 2 things that I want, and it's, again, dealing with the mental side of things. Zach Johnson, of course, was the winner, and obviously I want to talk about Jordan Spieth as well. What should a player, Jamie, such as Zach Johnson, when they win a tournament, especially something like this? I mean, we can talk and say that it's just another tournament, and it is, but to them, it obviously means a great deal because it is a major tournament. What should Zach take away from his win? What should be going through his mind, other than the fact that a trophy and an X number of dollars? What else should he be taking away from this win?
Well, I think first and foremost, Zach takes away that he is honestly a great player. He's I guess he's got 12 tour wins. He's got 2 majors under his belt, and it's like elevating yourself in your own mind, your own esteem, and the world is paying more attention as well. I mean, the majors are majors because the world puts more emphasis on them. Just as we're talking about players need to, not approach them really so differently. On the other hand, the world puts so much more weight on the majors that, that's what you got to do to be a great player. I mean, Zach can walk away and say, I am a great player. And he does it his way, which is what's such a beautiful thing. He's not obviously the longest hitter on tour, but he is a tremendous tactical player. And he went out there and he just did his business. And he also stood up, that 72nd hole, the putt that he made in the playoff. I mean, he was fantastic. And he handled the situation. He didn't change his game plan. He was very much himself. And so another thing to take away is to say, you know what? I do it my way. He could be singing Frank Sinatra's song. I do it my way, and I really am a great player. And what I think that everybody can take away is to say, you know what, it doesn't necessarily require fantastic length or distance. Dustin Johnson has it; it's a fantastic player, but he didn't sustain for the 72 holes. He hasn't quite broken through. Zach's done it without being the longest hitter in the world. So there are varying ways to get the job done, and we also know that there are varying swings. Jim Furyk's swing, right, is not the classic swing. So not everybody has to. There's not one way to be great. And the most important thing is to really maximize our own strengths and Zach plays to his own strengths, and he's really become quite a victor and quite a great winner. So I think he has a number of things really to take away, and that are lessons for us all.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, I'm sure that he's enjoying that win, but I'm sure that he's also, as you said, Jamie, that he's looking at and it's sort of a reassurance and a self-awareness, if you will, and giving him much more confidence and knowing that, hey, I can do this, and as you said, not necessarily being the longest hitter and doesn't even necessarily have to be the most accurate driver and so forth, but he's able to take away the fact that he's able to close the deal out when it needed it. Tim, I want to go to you because I want to again attack this from a slightly different angle. And the reason I mentioned Jordan Spieth is obviously Jordan's been on a whirlwind this year. He's come out with the first two majors. There was a lot of expectation, I know, within the golf industry that he was going to come in here and really kick butt, as it were. But there's also, I'm sure, a certain expectation that he had. What do you think going into this that he had in his mind? Do you think that he put pressure on himself, or do you think he was realistic and saying to himself, you know what, just because I've got these two majors, that's in the past. We're now dealing with the future in today, and we've got 4 rounds ahead of us. And what do you think he took away from not closing the deal out on this tournament?
Yeah, it's a great question. The one thing that I would say, though, that I think is important to understand is that, and it's a concept that I really enjoy sharing with my athletes, is that really when we talk about the word pressure, it's important to understand that all pressure is self-imposed. Nobody else can make us feel anything. And I think it's a very popular concept among the media and maybe whatever, that, you know, somebody else or something else outside of us has the power to make us feel a certain way. And they don't. So that how we perceive the whole thing, and it's not to say that we don't experience certainly negative emotions, but nobody other than ourselves, we're doing it to ourselves is what I'm trying to say. The second thing that I would say is that we can't really ever know, and this is a very popular concept, and I'm not trying to dodge the question here, but I don't think we can ever really know what somebody else's internal experience is without talking to them. And I think we try and second guess that all the time. We hear that from announcers all the time. Well, he can't be happy with that, or he's got to be upset with that. And really, we don't know what they're feeling. I mean, maybe they have accepted it and moved on. And I'm very fond of saying that most of what I hear on TV is really, I think, just, it's really more the announcer saying, this is how I would feel if I had done the same thing, and so now I'm telling you how they're feeling, and so I think that we got to be a little careful of that. I was very impressed with his interview after the event. I thought he handled it with incredible class, incredible dignity. I was impressed that he was sitting around, and I know Zach Johnson is a friend of his, but I was impressed that he was just sitting there watching the end of the tournament, where most players would just be upset, they'd leave or whatever, or just have had enough. And so, just from his behaviors, I give him major thumbs up, not knowing really what was going through him, but knowing he must have been in a pretty good enough emotional space to conduct himself with the class that I think he did.
Yeah, and that's true. And just to add my own little jab into the announcing booth, you're not trying to suggest that the announcers might put a little spin on some of their commentary, are you, Tim?
No, well, Jamie knows this from the work that she does, and John has to see this too. The zone, when we're in the zone, it has to be one of the most boring for TV mind states that there is. And without the drama that we see and that gets created, I'm not sure what the ratings would be. So I'm not going to bag anybody that I wouldn't do that anyway. Everybody's doing the best that they can. But if everybody was in the zone out there, it would be a very boring TV event. And yet we'd have more optimized players than we could handle. So yeah, do they put a spin on it? Yeah, of course. And yet, people love that stuff. So some people love that stuff.
Yeah, and it it's obviously helps the ratings and so forth. But I think you bring to light a very true point, though. I think that a lot of them are really looking at it internally from their own feelings and their own emotions, how they would react and respond, and sort of projecting that a little bit.
Oh, I totally believe that, because how do you ever really know how somebody else is processing information? We don't. And I would assume that, Jamie and John are going to agree with this, maybe not, but that a lot of times we get newer players who don't even know how they're perceiving information. And this is what, as good coaches, we really help to get out of them, so that they come to understand themselves on a deeper level that they didn't have access to before. So I just don't know how we sit and say, well, he had to feel that way, or she had to feel that way, or whatever. We don't really know.
No, exactly. John, I'm gonna certainly allow you an opportunity to respond. I know that a lot of the points that the other two have made, I'm sure you would agree with, but I want you to kind of attack this a little bit. Certainly, you're welcome to make some comments about the two individual players that I just mentioned, but also I'd like you to add in there a little bit from an amateur's perspective, and I'm going to set it up for you here first, and then let you go to town, so to speak. Obviously, there's two ways really to look at this. Obviously, when you're dealing with some of your students that you're working with, whether it be some of the higher level players or even some of the amateur players, obviously a win is a win. They're going to be excited. First off, with the player that wins, again, some are a little more humble. Some are just, they're out there partying and having a great time, and they're going to, the world's going to know that they've won that tournament, no matter how big or small. And then you've got some who maybe didn't close the deal, or maybe didn't handle things as effectively on the golf course as some of the others did, and they're going to become a little bit more withdrawn. They're maybe going to beat up on themselves a little bit. So how do you handle those two situations? But again, first, if you want to comment on Zach's win or Jordan, how he handled himself first, but I want you to really focus in on maybe some of your experiences that you've had with your students, on those that you've helped to get to that victory, and those that you've had to sort of put your arm around and say, John, it's going to be okay, but and then go from there.
Well, I'm going to pick up where Tim left off, and I'm going to use this term. It's just wrong to assume. It's the classic error of anybody, whether you're a golf professional helping somebody, or you're somebody at Apple trying to make a new product. You just can't assume. So, Tim, you're absolutely right. You just can't be assuming what people feel. And as a coach, I never do. It's always about asking questions and understanding the person, and trying to give them enough parameter to allow them to be themselves on the golf course, whether they are going to be the heroic partier who fills up the claret jug with everything and anything and everybody drinks out of it, or you go home like a Zach Johnson who works his tail off. I've actually watched him. His teacher, Mike Bender, is a good friend, and I've watched Zach work, and what you see is what you get. And he probably took that claret jug, put it in the box it came in, got it on the airplane, and very quietly let everybody know, hey, I'm the champion golfer of the year. That as a coach, we have to allow people to just be themselves, whether it's accepting the win or accepting the defeat. You just got to let them be themselves. When they get out of the parameter of themselves, a nice little helpful reminder is always the best. It's obviously there's emotion, as Jamie had said before, and you got to let that emotion out. Some are great at it, and some aren't. Jordan Spieth is years above his actual age when it comes to that. He's such a well-grounded young man. There's things I'm aware of that he does for a couple of local charities here in Orlando that he has got virtually no tie to at all, yet he sees a bigger picture, and I think that's what people see. And I think the criticism he gets is very undue, that it's very envious and somewhat selfish of people to throw anybody under the bus at that level, because we are assuming this is or this isn't what they're feeling or doing. When it comes to the amateur, I think that's the best word of advice I can give them. don't assume you're going to win or don't assume you're going to lose. You've got to hit every shot in the moment, being present, and do the absolute best, and then take the accumulation of that entire experience and be able to put a grade on yourself based on the parameters that measure you. You're not trying to compare yourself to somebody else. You can't. It's unfair to yourself to do that. It's unfair to the other person. And again, it assumes that you have their skill level, or you have their mental toughness level, or you have their emotional quotient level. There's lots of different things that go into the person. So long as they're acting as they would, whether they're very humble or they're very outspoken, and so long as it's done in a way that properly represents them and the team that they surround themselves with, that's all that matters. And as a coach, we've got to be there to support that and to help that player get from that prepping for the next opportunity, for that next event. I always talk about it as an opportunity because it is an opportunity for you to show yourself what you're capable of doing.
Yeah, and well said. And I got to say that the three of you tonight are certainly making me look real good. So thank you very much for some great answers and great responses to the questions. Let's shift gears just a little bit. We've talked a lot about some of the emotions and that, and obviously, as I mentioned, I believe off air, we're sort of halfway through for some people, anyways, through the golf season, especially up in the Northeast and up into Canada, with some of the cooler climates that they deal with throughout the latter part of the year. People have been out and playing for a little bit. And Tim, I want to start this particular conversation with you, if I can, and then Jamie, and then again we'll go back to John, and then Jamie, I'll let you round it up on this question. But my thought is this: you're well into the season now. People have had a chance to play. Those that play a little bit more have maybe played a dozen or so rounds. Those that maybe don't play that often, get out once in a while. But you certainly have a grasp on how your game is going to be, at this point. How are you learning anything? Are you sort of hitting for the sky, or what's happening with your game? So my question is this: if you're somebody that's struggling right now, and maybe you're not working with anybody, do you bother to connect with an instructor like John or Jamie or somebody else that might be out there and try to revamp what you need to do at this stage of the season? Or do you say, well, let's put it in the bag and maybe we'll work on it next year? What are some things, Tim, that you do?
Yeah, it's a great question, and one of the things that I'm very passionate about. As a peak performance coach, I work with a lot of the really, really good swing instructors. But the advantage that I have in a way is that for me, I'm not a competition to them because I work on the mind game and they continue to work on the swing itself. I would never. I am very adamant about saying it needs to be an easy game, and if it's not easy, you're doing something way too difficult, including the swing. With my better players, for example, if they're telling me that they're in a great emotional space out there, 99% of the time something has fallen apart in their swing, and they've got to get together with their swing coach. So yeah, it kind of depends on your goals of what you want, but I'm a huge fan of continuing instruction as well as continuing the mind game. We're actually, through Spirit of Golf now, we're certifying instructors who swing coaches who love this stuff that we're doing, so that they kind of become more total coaches, and they recognize the value of the emotional side of the game. But boy, they never give up on the swing, and I don't think they should, because let's face it, you can only whack so many golf balls sideways because of a bad swing, and you can have the best attitude in the world, and it's not going to keep you happy for very long, and I don't think it should. It's a game where we want to play, and we want to have fun, and we want to believe at some level we can connect the dots. Now, the flip side of that is, and I'm sure that all of us as peak coaches have worked with many athletes with phenomenal swings and equally off attitudes, And we all know the trappings of that they're only going to take their game so far until they've really got to improve their moods and their attitudes and their emotions. So it's really a combination of all of it. But yeah, I would never waste any part of any season. I think the desire to improve has to be an ongoing day-to-day, round-by-round, shot-by-shot thing.
Yeah, and that's some excellent points as well. John, one of the things, and the reason why I wanted to sort of tackle that issue, if you will, is I think a lot of, especially your amateurs, and we'll focus on the amateurs. The pros are obviously a little bit different kettle of fish, if you will. But a lot of the amateurs get out there, and they, as I said, maybe they've played a dozen or so rounds already into the year, and they're struggling with their game. They've maybe had a few lessons here and there, but they're just not getting it. And the steam sort of, they played enough, and they're just not seeing the improvement they had anticipated. They were excited at the beginning of the year, and now suddenly the wind is coming out of their sails. Now all of a sudden they're thinking to themselves, you know what, it's just not going to happen this year. There's always next year. How do we prevent that derailed train, if you will? And how do we get them re-energized and getting back, as Tim talked about, getting back and focused on some good fundamentals?
Well, I love two words that Tim used: easy and fun, and they proliferate my website. So much so that Jimmy Roberts looked me in the eye a couple of years ago when I did receive the award. I told him golf was easy, and he says, "Well, I don't know." And I said, "Well, you haven't had a lesson with me yet, so how could you know?" And it did get a little laugh out of the auditorium, but Tim's hitting it right on the head. When you're about to give things up for the season, I'll speak on behalf of some Canadian friends of mine. It's probably elk season, or it's probably salmon fishing season. So there's these natural seasonalities of let's put the clubs down and let's go do something else, and that proliferates no matter where you are. Football season is a big downer on the golf industry in some places. There's some golf courses that are ghost towns during Saturday college or Sunday professional football. So there's other reasons and or distractions for someone to sort of judge himself as saying, let's throw in the towel this year. My golf season's done. I didn't get any further than I did last year. But when someone comes to me with that type of explanation, I guess is the best way to say it, I'll always ask them, well, what are you measuring this by? And what have you done to get you over the hump differently than what you did last year? Because you have to explore all these things as a coach, and self-exploration of the student sometimes doesn't get done until they sit down with a coach. Getting them to go to a coach, sometimes it's difficult with the amount of video on YouTube and the amount of information that's out there. There's a lot of people that will circumvent that one-to-one time, that one-to-one coaching time. And the way I've always said it is, if you want to be an okay pianist, take the group lesson with all the beginner piano players. But if you want to become a concert pianist, you've got to have that one-to-one time. You've got to put that time in behind the keyboard to practice it a little bit, and you have to explore what you're capable of doing. And typically mid-season, another point I agree with Tim with, I'll never have someone throw in the towel based on some very loosely put together goals and objectives, so long as it's all around fun. If they're having fun, yet they're experiencing something that's totally out of the ordinary, let's go fix it. Let's go get that done so you can continue to have fun. If it's an amateur is just beginning, if they're throwing in the towel, not only have they done something wrong, but probably the coach, the golf course where they play, the people they surround themselves with, they've done something wrong. They haven't allowed this person to experience the fun somehow, or we haven't made it inviting. We haven't made it easy. This game is not hard. We just have to be able to scale it to the person's skill level. And that for the amateur trying to win the member guest or a lot of club championships coming up here shortly, most likely around the country, what have you done to stay on that goal? A lot of times it's easy to sort of give up and go back to the old habits you had, but that's totally short short circuits everything. And one of the things I always try to do is inspire people to stay on their road that they created for themselves. Don't get off the highway just yet. You're almost there. You've got a little bit of ways to go. Be willing to take those extra steps, those extra couple of hours, or those extra few minutes on the putting green, or whatever the case may be, to at least go through the season and show that you can persevere. Because a lot of the times when people throw in the towel, they've lost that bigger picture side of persevering, and that the game should be fun and should be easy, whether you're trying to persevere or you're just trying to knock it 3 feet in front.
Yeah, excellent point. Jamie, a lot of those amateurs out there, boy, they've tried everything. They've got everything in their golf bag that you could imagine. They've seen all the videos. They've taken some lessons. They're out there beating 1,000 balls a day, and they just can't understand why their golf game isn't improving. And we've all seen it. We've seen that player. It's mid-season, and they're just hands are up in the air. I don't know what to do, and they're just confused. You do a lot of different things besides just teaching golf. Sort of roll it into a nice little package for me, if you will, to sort of close out this segment. And how do you get that fire back into some of the people that you work with that you see that may be struggling, partway through the season like this?
Oh, great question. Well, one of the things that I just love that I guess Tim might have said was that never write off any part of any season, and
right.
Sort of never just throw up your hands. And a lot depends on what a person's goals are. And one of the things that I find is that so many players, they either get plateaued or they feel like they're going backwards sometimes, or they're getting a little bit older, or they've just gotten so frustrated, they're stuck and they're losing it and all that kind of stuff. So, and I think that those are real issues, especially for the people who are motivated to be getting better and not only playing for fun and enjoyment, which is a perfectly great thing to do. And probably a lot of people who are stuck and upset need to just back off for a while and just enjoy playing. A lot comes back naturally when you just sort of lighten up and start swinging more freely and having a good time. All of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I'm getting better. The real keys to getting better are elusive, it seems, for many a times. But coming back to basics, just, and for me, some of the basics that I see aren't necessarily really there in enough players are things like even their basic setup. Go back, check your posture, check how you're moving, and also really utilizing stability, lower body. So many players are using upper body force, and when they start getting even more frustrated or more upset or trying harder, they tend to hold tighter, grip pressures greater. They're using their biceps instead of their legs and their feet muscles and their core, their center,
right.
Their hips, sequence, timing, rhythm, balance. Those things go a lot farther than that, trying so hard with a lot of tension. So a lot of times it's just kind of backing off and going, for me, through martial arts training, that I've been bringing into golf through Ki Golf is those essential principles that really get you in that place where you can create the stability, create the sequence, the timing, the rhythm, be swinging with more relaxed power, enjoying yourself more, being more connected to yourself. So, that's kind of, a lot of the direction that I like to go with people. And, and they seem to go, oh my gosh, this is starting to work. Wow. Relating it to natural body movement. I wanted to say something as well about seasonality. In a certain sense, it's always season because, first of all, people travel and they winter and all that kind of stuff. But
right.
It's always a season for self-mastery and for engaging with oneself and how we're responding emotionally, how we are responding mentally to the challenges on the golf course, which are like challenges of life. I'm thinking of a guy in New York. This was a few years ago. His wife somehow found my DVDs online, and they have certain practices that can be done indoors or out, rain or shine. And so he just started practicing in his basement. He got my DVDs as a Christmas present. And he came out in May, first day outdoors, and went to a driving range. And there were guys out there with, a lot of technology and checking your spin rates and all sorts of things. And they're measuring all of his shots. And so he got on and he was just so consistent, hitting a lot of great shots. And they said to him, well, where do you winter? And he didn't even know what the phrase meant. He was kind of a, he was in New York working all the time and, just playing around in his basement. But you know what? He was engaging with himself. He was working on some of his fitness, some patterning his swing, gaining consistency. He was able to do that in his basement, indoors, and practice throughout the entire season, not just outdoors on the golf course. And he came out with great results, measurable results. So, basically it's always season to be engaging with ourselves, with our physical fitness, our emotional fitness, our mental fitness. And when we can be in charge of ourselves, which I call being more of a master, which is kind of bringing in that martial arts sense, we're at whatever level we're at, whether we're shooting 100 or whether we're shooting 75, it doesn't matter. We all are engaging with our own mastery, control of ourselves, and how we're dealing with the ups and downs, the adversities, the successes that we encounter all the time. And it's always season for that.
Yeah. And on that note, great panel discussion tonight, guys. I just thoroughly enjoyed that. I think a lot of people tuning in tonight are certainly going to learn from what was discussed. I'm going to allow, Jamie, I'm going to start with you because I know there was something that you wanted to get out there. You've got something coming up here in, I think, just a few weeks, if I'm not mistaken, that you want to let the listeners know about. If those that want to get involved can certainly do so. And then Tim and then John, I'll let you guys talk for a moment before we close up the segment. So, Jamie, go ahead.
Well, thanks, Ted. Yeah, for women golfers, I'm co-teaching a women's golf retreat, Build and Rejuvenate Your Golf Game, with a great colleague of mine, Rebecca Heinmert, who played on the Futures Tour for the LPGA. She was a Swedish national champion. So we are going to be at Chardonnay Golf Club August 8th and 9th, 2-day intensive for women. And, Napa Valley in California, golf course, wines through vineyards. It's just a great time together and a time to have fun and learn a lot on all of these levels. Rebecca and I both take a very sort of integrated approach, and we also integrate technology in with the experience. So that's coming up the 8th to the 9th, and just keep posted. I've also started some wonderful every businesswoman golf retreats and intensives and seminars. So a lot of good things going on. But 8th to the 9th, we still have some room. We're filling up, but we've got some spaces for women who want to improve their game.
And very quickly, Jamie, if they want to get more information, is there a website that they can go to?
Yeah, they can just go to my website, which is www.kiaigolf.com, kiaigolf.com, or give me a call, 760-492-GOLF, 492-4653.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Jamie. Tim, anything you got cooking that you want to get out there coming up that you want to do? And if not, certainly let the folks know how they can get in touch with you if they're interested in Spirit of Golf.
Yeah. The big push right now is we're really doing a lot of instructor certification. We're finding a lot of swing coaches who are very, very interested in assimilating the emotional techniques we share. Just in listening to Jamie too, I just want to add something very quickly. I think traffic is a great place to practice these emotional skills. I think standing in a grocery line. So I think I really believe we can develop these skills. People think that, there's the golf course and that's where I've got to do it, but all day, every day, we can be practicing these mastery skills. I guess can't emphasize that enough. If you think you can be upset and volatile all day long, get to the golf course, be calm, cool, and stable, good luck. It doesn't work that way. So anyways, for Spirit of Golf, it's really the instructor certification. We're doing clinics all over the country at a lot of private clubs, and that's exciting. Let's see. Get a hold of me at myspiritofgolf.com, and would love to hear from anybody. And so I will turn it over to John.
Perfect. John?
Tim, Jamie, thanks. It was an honor to be on the program again today, and especially the two of you. Totally different perspectives than what I'm normally used to experiencing there, and I appreciate all the words of wisdom. I'm definitely going to take some back to my clients. I got to put in a plug for Jamie's thing at Chardonnay Golf Club. I've been there. I've played there. I've taught there. What a wonderful place. If you're really into the wine country of California, there's a fantastic place there, and I urge the ladies of the world to catch up with Jamie and get out to Chardonnay. You'll really enjoy it. You won't regret it. Here in the near future, I should be having some things come out on my grip project. I'm doing some work with FlightScope and with Golf Pride to do some research on actually what happens with grips, various size grips, various types of grips. And probably by 1st of October, you may be seeing some initial studies come out and some initial findings. That's been going well over the summer. If you want to participate in that, looking for a lesson, looking to improve, you can always catch me on johnhughesgolf.com. My contact information is there. And once again, Ted, you give me the opportunity once a month to get on board and say what I need to say, or at least ask me what I think I need to say. And I once again want to thank you for that.
Well, thank you, John. It's always a pleasure to have you on, and Jamie and Tim, you as well. I look forward to doing these panel discussions every week, and it's always nice to mix it up, but it's good to have some great guests like you guys on here. And you always have an open door policy here on Golf Talk Live to come back and not only join in the Coach's Corner segments when you're available, but also if you've got some other things happening in your neck of the woods that you want to make sure that we get out to not only some of the students, potential students out there, but even some of the other coaches and teachers. It's always good to share and exchange that information. So thank you, Jamie, Tim, and John, as always, for joining me here on the Coach's Corner panel tonight.
Yeah, thanks everybody. It was great.
Thank you so much, Ted, and thank you, Tim and John. Fantastic.
Enjoyed it. It was
all right.
Fantastic.
Well, listen,
really great.
Have a great evening, a great weekend, and until next time, God bless each and every one of you, and just have a great week.
Will do.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Good night.
Big thanks. Good night.
Okay, that was my very special guests, John Hughes, Jamie Leno-Zimron, and Tim Kramer, who are all great professionals in the game. And speaking of professionals, I've got another very special guest coming on. She was actually on the Women of Golf show with Cindy Miller and myself that you may recall was a couple of months ago. And she is the founder and president of Yoga for Golfers, and she's here to talk about really how yoga has sort of intertwined into not just golf, but other areas, Major League Baseball. We're going to talk a little bit about that as well. I know it's a golf show, but we want to talk about that. But let me just tell you a little bit about Katherine before I bring her on, for those of you who are not familiar with her. For more than a decade, Katherine has really been a leader and an innovator in the world of golf fitness. Her unique and highly effective approach to golf conditioning is a fusion of Western biomechanical science and Eastern mind-body conditioning that increases performance for serious sports athletes and golf enthusiasts of all levels. Katherine is certainly well known, and her work has been profiled by USA Today, the New York and LA Times, the National Post, Golf Magazine, Golf Week, and even US Airways Magazine and Asian Golf Monthly. As a Golf Magazine fitness panel expert and regular contributor to the Golf Channel, she has appeared on The Turn, The Big Break, Your Game Night, and How Low Can You Go, and Game On. Her fitness series, Swing Fault Solutions, continues to air on the Golf Channel's international markets, and she is the producer of 9 DVDs and author of the groundbreaking book, Yoga for Golfers. And her second book, Swing Flaws and Fitness Fixes, was co-authored with top 100 golf instructor Hank Haney. So without any further ado, if you will, let me bring on Katherine Roberts.
Hi, Ted. How are you?
Good evening, Katherine, and welcome to Golf Talk Live.
Thank you. Great to be here. Great to be back with you, too.
Well, thank you. And I wanted to have you on for a little bit longer. Obviously, when you were on a few months ago with Cindy and I, it was a shorter segment. I wanted to have you a little bit spend more time with me tonight on my show here in the evening. When you're well relaxed and ready to unwind from your busy day, and I know you have a busy day, so thank you first off for joining me tonight. I know it's difficult sometimes after a hard day to have to do an interview like this, but I appreciate you giving your time for me and our audience here.
No, it's my pleasure. Trust me, I'm stretched out and relaxed, Ted. I'm ready to roll.
Perfect. Okay, well let's talk a little business, if you will, a little shop, and then we'll have a little bit of fun as we wrap up here. Let's first off talk about how long you've been practicing yoga yourself, and what are some of the benefits that you've seen in your own journey, if you will.
My journey started as a golfer before I got into yoga. And I live in Scottsdale, Arizona, and at the time, which was back in 1998, I was playing to about a 26, 27, 28 handicap. I got paired up at a beautiful golf course called Desert Mountain, and I got paired up with a woman who was a 5 handicap. And I thought, okay, whatever this woman's doing, I need to be doing because I want to be a 5. Turned out that she was a yoga instructor. And that was my first entree into yoga. Now, granted, I played every sport. I played competitive tennis as a junior, and I've always taught a lot of group fitness, so I've always been very athletic. But when I got introduced to yoga, basically on the golf course, I was immediately smitten. So smitten, Ted, that I'll tell you why I was smitten. From the golf perspective, my handicap dropped to a 16 very, very quickly. And one of the things that I noticed is that I was hitting the ball further, but also much like your last panel discussion, which I really enjoyed, and I know many of those people.
Thank you.
And I was finding myself to be more focused, to be more accepting of when I had a 3-putt and I'm walking to the next tee box. I was able to breathe and be more present. So it was not only from the physical standpoint, but the ability to practice these yoga concepts and what I was learning on the yoga mat was immediately, I was able to transfer onto the golf course. So I had a corporate job. I was working for a Fortune 500 company, and I quit my job and decided to teach yoga full time. And because I live in Scottsdale, I was teaching all, quote unquote, traditional yoga in a lot of facilities like the Boulders, Desert Mountain, Desert Highlands in North Scottsdale. And all of my clients were golfers. And they were all coming back to me and they were saying, they were getting all the same results that I was getting. And most of them had been recently retired or close to retirement. So they were wanting to play more. They didn't have back pain for the first time. They could squat down to read a putt. They could walk the course with less fatigue. And in 1999, I had this aha moment, which was, oh my goodness, I'm going to create yoga for golfers. And that's really how I started.
Wow. And you know what, let me just preface this a little bit because I want people to understand, because there are still some, and I'll give you a good example. When preparing for tonight's show, of course, as I know you're aware, because you acknowledge some of the postings that I did through social media. I always like to, post it out through the different groups and that. And somebody actually, and I won't say out the names or anything like that, but somebody actually posted a comment on one of the posts I put on Facebook, and he said that, well, I really don't believe in yoga. And I kind of had an internal chuckle because I'm certainly no expert at it, but I've certainly done yoga and I'm familiar with it. Explain for those that just don't get that yoga is not something that's just for women. It's not. In fact, it's becoming very well recognized around the world now by some top athletes, and you're going to talk about some of them here in a little bit. Explain for those that still haven't gotten into the boat, really what yoga is all about.
I would say to that person, I really don't believe in yoga is like saying, I wouldn't even quite know where to go with that because it's such a ambiguous answer, right?
Right.
What I would say is that there's an ancient practice of yoga. There's many, many different styles of yoga. There's an ancient practice of yoga, which is where all yoga is derived. The methodologies that I've created use yoga in the physical form. So we do yoga poses. You could call them exercises.
Sure.
We do yoga breathing, which helps with mindset and focus. And then there's some other kind of general yoga concepts, like what I just talked about like acceptance. You've got a 3-putt. How do you become centered, come back to the middle, and be in the present moment? So the practice of yoga really does address all of those things. Now, the programs, though, that I've designed with Yoga for Golfers are 100% specific to the physical and mental demands of the very specific sport of golf. So, and I want to just touch on that for a second, because if you, as you know, I work in baseball, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, but if you think about, golf is an explosive sport, okay? The golf swing happens in under 2 second period of time. You're trying to create tremendous velocity at impact. You're trying to create club head speed, and you do all this from a static position. You don't get a running start in golf unless you're Happy Gilmore.
Yep.
Right? So,
right.
So my programs are designed to help golfers create what they need to do on the golf course, physically, mentally, and in this kind of more esoteric, but in what your last panel discussed, all of those things. So that's how I would describe, yoga and yoga for golfers and that sport-specific type of methodologies.
And the reason why I wanted to mention that, and I understand, here's one thing that I think a lot of people are under misconception. I've as I said, I've done yoga myself, and as I said, I'm certainly no expert on it, but I've done some other physical training in the past of a different nature. And I got to be honest with you, yoga is, especially when you're first starting out and you don't understand some of the different things that you're doing, it's not something, it's certainly not as easy as it looks. And it does take a certain demand. No, well, the reason why I say this is I remember years ago when I belonged to a gym when I was still back home up in Canada. And I remember they were first sort of introducing yoga, and of course all the guys, well, I don't want to do this and I don't want to do that. And, I'm not going to get. Yeah. And after a few sessions, it was amazing how many of them said, wow, I can't believe how difficult that was, and how much, my balance is better, and so on and so forth. And you know all of the common answers that you hear. And this is why I think now, as again, we'll talk about in a little bit, why some other areas of sports are starting to gravitate to that. Because, you can go in the gym and you can lift weights and you can do that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you've designed and tailor-made really a program with using yoga that is designed specifically for golfers. And I think that's fantastic. And that's, of course, why it's been so successful. So let me ask you a question. Obviously, a lot of players out there, especially your amateurs, feel some wear and tear on their bodies during and even some muscle fatigue throughout the course of the year. And you heard some of the panel discussion we talked about, getting to that half season of golf, for especially those in the Northeast and up in Canada. So they're feeling a little muscle fatigue. They've been playing a few rounds. Can yoga help improve in those areas as well?
100%. And I want to just take a little step back when you talked about how much more difficult yoga was than you thought it would be.
Sure.
That concept and what I see is the foundation for how I teach, how our certified teachers teach, how our DVDs are laid out and taught. I always teach in building blocks, because my primary goal is to make sure that everyone finds success. So I say, if I'm teaching, let's say I'm teaching a pose, I say, if this is good, then stay here. If there's a little more available, then we can go there. If there's more available there, then we can go there. Because again, I want everyone to feel success. And, we are able to prove that, through technology, we can prove quantifiable, tangible increases in performance, in speed, in distance, et cetera, through the Yoga for Golfers program. So, and then to touch on, it being the height of the season, certainly, and I can speak to this myself too, because I play more golf in the summer than I do in the winter, because I'm frankly too busy in the winter to do it. So I've been playing a lot of golf, and and I notice, oh yeah, I kind of feel that in my back a little bit. I mean, it's nothing that would stop me from playing, but the way that our programs are designed, they're designed also for different requirements. So we have, for example, a program that's just a dynamic warm up. What do you do to get yourself ready to go play? To everything from programs that talk about strength and balance. And those are programs that might even be more applicable when you're in the midst of the season like we are right now. 2, I have programs that we call post-round, which are restorative yoga, which help reduce lactic acid in the lower extremities. It helps reduce soreness. It kind of keeps you in the game. So we have programs that can target each one of those areas and different types of the year. But all of our programs build upon each other. So, for example, we have one that's level 1, and it's called mobility and stability, which is the flexibility and a little bit of strength. Then we move on to the next one, which builds upon that pyramid, which is then strength and balance. Then the other one builds upon those 2, and that's called power and distance. So all of these are sequential, and they help, again, find success for golfers.
Yeah, and the reason why I wanted to sort of approach it from that standpoint, Katherine, is I think there's still, it certainly has become more in the forefront now here in more recent years, thanks to obviously great experts like yourself. But I think for a long time there was a lot of misconception about what really yoga
100%.
was and some of the benefits. Yeah, exactly. And there's still a few, undecided out there. Pardon me, but. And
100%. And I wanted to touch on something. I wanted to touch on something too. When you said that a lot of people think that it's just for women, 85% of our clients are male, over the age of 45. So that's what they're designed for. And again, when I started teaching yoga in 1998, and then developed yoga for golfers in 1999, the majority of people taking yoga were women. But having worked in sports that are predominantly male, golf, and baseball, here are men that are coming in because they want the benefits of it, and it's presented in a way that again is very sports specific. But I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah, and I knew that we were on the same page with that. It's just I wanted to point that out because I know that there's going to be people that are listening that think, oh, yoga, I just don't get it. So this brings me to, it's true, and let's be honest.
Oh, I know, absolutely.
And here's a good example with this question here. Obviously, there are many who take lessons and certainly purchase some pretty good equipment, but still manage to struggle with their golf game. Using your own example, as you mentioned, you were a little bit higher handicapper when you first were starting out, but you gravitated using yoga, and managed to bring that handicap down. So for those that are going out and buying that $400 driver and getting the latest and greatest technology out there to help their golf games, let's shift gears a bit, and why don't you explain to them, for those that are listening, in that category particularly, where maybe their money could be better spent or time could be better spent utilizing yoga in their daily routines.
Mm-hmm. I think that I look at the whole performance piece in golf as a triad. And in that triad, we have instruction, equipment, and fitness. And so I believe that all of those things can come really well together. Some people, and I completely honor their own journey. They don't want to do anything about their fitness. That's okay, or maybe they don't want to spend money on the right equipment, or maybe they say, I'm only going to do equipment, but I'm not going to take lessons. Okay. So I respect and honor all of those. But to me, the thing that closes that triangle is all three of those pieces coming together in a very cohesive way. I have a saying, which is adherence over duration is the most important thing. And I always encourage my students to commit to 15 minutes, 4 days a week. It doesn't have to be an overwhelming, I have to go to the gym an hour and a half every day, maybe with 1 day off. I've seen people, that have come to me that have said, you've never seen anybody with hamstrings as tight as mine. And I'll say, I bet I have. Right?
Right.
But what's amazing to me, and even 16 years into this, Ted, what always amazes me is how their bodies change with the slightest bit of effort. It's remarkable. So I just always want to get that across, that it doesn't have to be a really long thing. Just give yourself that gift of 15 minutes, 4 days a week, and you will start to reap the benefits. I guarantee it.
It's interesting that you make that point because, and I think a lot of people, the other sort of misconception is that they need to, if they're doing some other kind of a fitness routine, that they need to stop that and just move solely into yoga. And that's not the case. This is really yoga that can be added. And this is what I did with mine is I was doing, I certainly do some weights, but I do weights differently now. I mean, I was always very lean. I'm 6'4", and of course the weights creeped up on me over the years. I think 215 now or something, which on a 6'4" frame doesn't look like 215, but nevertheless, I've never had a weight issue.
That doesn't seem like very much, Ted.
No, exactly. It's people still think I'm quite thin, so that's a bonus, especially at my age. But all kidding aside, when you're younger, especially for men and young boys, it's all about we want to bulk up and bulk up. Well, as well as I do, doesn't matter which gender you are, bulking up is not conducive for a good golf swing. The bigger you get, the more difficulties you arise. And really somebody introduced me some time ago to yoga, and I sort of incorporated in. So I do a little bit lighter weight than what I used to do, and I try not to do things because obviously I don't want to end up with injury. And yoga has certainly helped in a lot of the preventative, as you talked about earlier. But we don't want people that they have to sort of scrap their fitness routine. So can somebody incorporate that into a fitness program that maybe they're currently using? And also, this is something that they can do really in their own home. They don't have to go, as you said, to a gym or to an outside facility if they choose not to, correct?
Correct on all fronts. I'm a big believer in cross-training. I cross-train myself. I lift weights. I cycle. I swim. I hike. I obviously play golf. And obviously I do yoga every day. And I think that I believe in lifting weights. I actually believe in Olympic lifting. I believe in power lifting. I mean, anything that can help us generate power is great. Combining all of those cross-training methodologies with yoga, in my opinion, is the key. Because, and especially as we get older, and mobility starts to become more challenging, the less you move, the less you move. It's called inertia. So I would say if you have, again, I come back to that 15 minutes. If you have 15 minutes and that's all you have, I would say you need to stretch, need to do yoga. The other thing about yoga is we always come back to the flexibility piece. But yoga uses your body weight against gravity. Yoga can create and does create tremendous amount of strength and lean muscle mass and lean bodies, right? And you're always working on the range of motion, but there's a strength component that is a very important piece of practicing yoga and yoga for golfers. There's also the balance piece. And, I just wanted to talk quickly about something about kind of training for the sport as we're talking about different types of training.
Yep.
So the golf swing happens in what we call 3 planes of motion. Okay. So there's flexion and extension, right? So if I'm in my address position, right, I'm hinging at my hips, I'm bending my knees, my ankle is dorsiflexing. That's flexion. Okay. I'm slightly lateral bending. I'm just talking about at address. I'm not talking about any other phase of the golf swing. I'm slightly lateral bending. As I then begin my takeaway, I then start to create rotation. So that's the third plane of motion. It's called sagittal, frontal, and transverse planes of motion. Because our programs are 100% sport specific for the game of golf, all of our yoga poses are sequenced in ways that are triplane motion. So we're always training. So that comes back to okay, are you going to lift weights? Lifting weights is great. Powerlifting is great. All of this stuff is great for golf. You need endurance, but it should be done in a way that's specific to what your goals are and specific to the sport.
It's interesting because one of the programs that has been out there for a while, and I'm talking fitness programs, of course, we've seen all the infomercials, and then whether you agree or not with some of the format, is the P90X program. We see all kinds of people and, the ripped abs and stuff like that. What was very interesting was, and I know I think it's not John, I can't remember the gentleman's name that does the a lot of the videos and that, but he actually made a point, and he talked about in the yoga segment that because of yoga, he was able to master all of the other components in the P90X project. And it was very, very interesting that he said that. He said it allowed him to be able to do a better and more effective job in all of the other areas of the fitness program that they put together for P90X. And that was very interesting because a lot of people would not maybe have thought of that unless you're familiar with yoga. So it was just very interesting that he sort of really said and gave a thumbs up, if you will, to yoga. And they actually have a very long session. Believe me, I've sweated through many of the sessions, so I know how long it is.
I saw it. Yeah, I saw it.
So you know what? Yeah, so you know what I'm talking about. And it may not, it may differ somewhat from some things you do. But my point that I was trying to make is that here's somebody in the fitness industry that has created a program that's obviously been very successful for whatever reasons. But they actually have incorporated yoga and a lot of yoga really into it because of the benefits and the effects, and also further to explain the fact that the yoga component has actually enhanced and made better the other components of that fitness program. So it is important, I think, to add that in, and I think as time goes on, more and more people are starting to understand that, and I'm sure you're seeing it on your front as well.
It is important to add it in because, as I was referring to before, we have a pyramid of performance, if you will. And that pyramid, the foundation of that pyramid starts in mobility, and it starts in stability and integration of joints. And so if I decided, let's say, for example, let's say I wanted to go do some kind of extreme lifting or something like that, or let's just take it back to the golf swing. Let's say I'm trying to increase my distance and I want to increase my power, okay? For a golfer to just say, I'm just going to swing as hard as I can, that doesn't work. What we need to do is build that foundation of the mobility and then the stability and then the integration. Once those things are built as the foundation, then we can build upon that. So what he said is spot on, in my opinion. And
right.
Yeah, and again, just coming back to the fact that it's, even if you start with something that's very simple, you'll see tremendous results. It's exciting.
Yeah, it's interesting to see really some of the things that are, and we talked about it earlier in our panel discussion. Obviously, we focused about the mental side of the game and that sort of thing, and emotions. It's amazing how the industry, certainly slow in some ways, is starting to gravitate away from just the traditional sort of, golf lesson and the fundamentals of golf, which is still important to have, but getting away from just swing mechanics and now getting into the other areas, fitness, obviously, and we can thank players like, obviously, Tiger and Annika and some of the others that have been out there that have been very fitness active, and, of course, individuals such as yourself that have been out through the industry really talking about the importances of fitness and helping the game in that respect. So obviously you do a lot of clinics and you do a lot of different things and you have different programs. Talk about some of the specifics, some of the programs that you offer, and then we can allude to where they can get more information, of course. But talk about some of the programs. And obviously you have DVDs and that sort of thing, and you've written some books, of course. So let's talk about that.
Well, for people that are listening, if they're new to yoga or they're new to yoga for golfers or just the concept and not really sure where to start, we have a program on our website, and this is completely complimentary. It's called YFG, like Yoga for Golfers, Golfer's Profile. And when you click onto that on the website, it's on the upper right-hand corner. What it does is it asks you approximately 15 questions about everything from your strengths to your challenges on the golf course. Ask a couple fitness questions. Do you walk? How early do you get to the golf course? How much time do you spend practicing, et cetera? Based on the answer to your the questions, it will provide you 10 free Yoga for Golfers training tips. And those training tips are a way that you can get started. If someone says, I don't know what to do, I don't know where to start, I'm not sure which products to buy, et cetera. That's really a great tool to direct you to something that is personalized. And then on the website, we also have a brand new series of DVDs, which is called our Par Level series. And again, it's mobility, stability, strength and balance, and power and distance. I also personally do a lot of live remote coaching So I have clients all over the world, in Dubai and South Africa and Wales and in different parts of North America that I've never met in person, but I teach and coach them live remote.
Wow.
So that's always good. We also have teacher training program. We currently have certified teachers in over 20 countries. And so on our website too, we also have a locate an instructor where if you're looking for some in-person personal training that's not with me, you can go on the website and find a certified Yoga for Golfers instructor in your area. So we have all of these different ways that we can be of service to golfers. And yeah, and you know, I wanted to just touch on something too when you talked about the coaching piece.
Sure.
So you talked about the coaching, and obviously you watched the British Open. How amazing was that?
Oh, incredible!
I know.
Yeah, it was very good.
I was exhausted. I was
very
like,
good.
I have to take a nap after this. But
I know.
It was the reason I want to bring that up is because one of the key components to what we do, in addition to the physical part, is teaching golfers about breathing and being centered. And during that playoff, the commentator said over and over again, he just needs to take a deep breath. Did you hear him say that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So all of the programs and all these methodologies that I just mentioned about how we can deliver both in person and through content and DVDs, et cetera, all touch on all of those pieces. And I just wanted to bring that up.
Well, and let me just add to this as well, Katherine. One of the reasons I had the panel discussion I had this morning, or on the first hour, was because I knew I was having you on the second half of the program, and I wanted to really have something that I thought would complement each other. You know, a lot of golfers, especially our amateur golfers, obviously our professionals are getting more involved in some of the different things that are available out there. But, you know, the typical thing that most of the golf coaches, myself included, we hear is, well, how do I fix my slice? And it's always the same sort of questions. And I want to start using the program here to get the discussions and the conversations going in a little bit different direction. We certainly like to have the panel discussions and have people write in or what have you with some of their issues. But there's a lot of other factors involved, and you know, you might be able to cure the slice this week, and you might be able to cure you know, somebody hooking the ball and things like that. But ultimately, if they're not looking at the whole encompass of their game, and that means their mind, their spirit, and not just the physical part, but obviously their emotions, if they're not putting that all into check, which a lot of the elite players are starting to recognize and have recognized now for several years, they're just going to fall into those same traps. And that's why we hear the same questions coming all the time. So what I'm trying to do with this program, by having, you know, guests like yourself and the panel that comes on here, is to get that discussion going, and not just amongst the amateurs, but I want with the professionals. A lot of professionals tune into this program as well, listening and picking up tips and things like that. So that was why I had the discussion we did on the first hour, because I knew you were coming on here to talk about what you're doing, and I just thought they would sort of meld and gel together, if you will. So obviously I made a good choice there, made a good executive decision.
Yeah, no, I think you did it beautifully, Ted. Beautiful.
Thank you. Let's shift gears just a little bit here, Katherine, because I wanted to give you ample time to talk about this as well. I mean, I know this is a golf program, and I know that you do some other things besides Yoga for Golfers. You're doing some work with Major League Baseball. Tell us a little bit about that and how you're helping some of the great players in baseball.
Well, I've been teaching yoga in MLB for now. I'm coming into my 13th season, and currently working with 6 professional teams and working privately also with some MLB players. Interestingly enough, they got to me through golf. They wanted to bring in someone that could teach yoga to professional athletes who understood the biomechanics of baseball. And, you know, batting and the golf swing are very similar, they're identical in terms of what we call the kinematic sequence, how power is generated, accelerated, harnessed, and then decelerated. The biomechanics are the same. So that's how I first started into baseball. They reached out to me. What's really interesting is how far this has come is that I actually am getting ready to go on the road with one of my teams. I work very closely with coaches in these teams of different players, like let's say the catching coaches. Hey, we want to get these guys to be able to perform better. We know that there is a mobility and stability issue. Katherine, can you work specifically with these players in addition to just working with the team? And so it's really great. It's a great environment that I love. The players are really open to it. The coaches have just grasped on to the knowledge, and really, when you talk about coaching in the last segment, I see myself as a yoga coach, whether it be in golf or in baseball or really anywhere. I am coaching people to better performance, but also what I do is based in science. So I really see as what I do, it's a yoga and science and performance coming together. And it's great to see people that, be able to perform better. But one of the things that we always talk about too, and this is back to golf as well, is how do you train your mind to come back to the middle? And I just want to share this one story, and I'll keep this player anonymous. But I have a player on a team that every listener would know, and we were talking one day, and he said, this is what I want to do. I would rather do this than be in the gym. He said, there are so many great baseball players out here. Everyone has incredible mechanics. He said, the thing that's going to separate me from everyone else is my ability to access my mental acuity. What can I do to make myself mentally strong and we talked about this, how do you come back to the middle, when you're really excited, when you've had a great shot, how do you bring yourself back to the middle? And I'm not saying to be apathetic. I'm saying, how do you harness all of these parts of yourself so that you can perform at the highest level? And that's what I talk to my baseball players about every day. And that's what I talk to my golfers about every day too.
Well, and the thing, as you talk about is it's really yoga is not just about the physical side. It is about the mental side, or the mind, if you will. There's a lot of benefits
100%.
From doing yoga. Exactly. And this is where I think, again, the misconception, everybody just, they hear, downward dog and warrior pose, and they think, well, okay, that's great. I've got these stretches and that. But there's a lot of things. It helps the breathing. It helps relaxation. There's a ton of benefits from it. So this is why you're starting to see some of these professional athletes gravitate to it, because there's other benefits. I mean, they can go and work out in the gym, they can run, they can do sprints, they can do all these things to keep themselves physically fit for many, many years. But there's other areas of our being that need to address as well. And yoga sort of brings all of that together. It brings a fitness component to it, but it also brings the spiritual and the mind as well together. And that's in harmony. So that's really what people are starting, and why it has become so popular here over the last few decades. And as I said, you're doing a fantastic job.
Oh, thanks, Ted. Sorry, it's when you think about playing a round of golf, let's say a round of golf is 4 hours and 20 minutes, 4.5 hours. Do you know how many minutes you're actually playing golf? I mean, hitting a ball? It's a very short amount of time. Now, I'm not saying that for me, golf is about the whole experience. It's about from when I pull up to the bag drop to when I'm, having something to eat afterwards. It's the camaraderie. It's the beauty. It's everything. But one of the things that we teach in yoga for golfers is we teach how do you train your mind to be what we call in yoga, experience one-pointed concentration. How do you withdraw from the senses for those 4 seconds that you might be standing over the ball, for those 2 seconds that the golf swing actually happens? So everything is framed to help you train your mind. No one is ever going to come to a yoga for golfers class and sit in a lotus position with their hands, held together, staring at a candle, right? But what we do is when I have you in a challenging position, and I'm asking you to breathe and focus for 5 breaths, I am helping you to train your mind so that when you're standing over the golf ball, you already know how to bring your mind and your body and everything centered right over the ball right then and now. So that's how we use that. That's how we train people. And it's interesting too, because a lot of people come to yoga for golfers, or let's just say yoga in general, because they say, well, I really think I need to be more flexible. My back hurts, whatever it might be. One of the biggest things that people say, the reason they want to do these programs is they want to learn how to quiet their mind.
Yeah, exactly.
And we teach them that. Yeah.
An interesting point too, Katherine, we talked about in my earlier segment about how, a lot of golfers out there, when they're faced with a situation where they've maybe hit a bad tee shot, or they've just done something and they've got that negative frame of mind, there's a lot of techniques that you can learn through yoga that can help you overcome some of those issues. And that doesn't mean it's going to cure the slice or it's going to cure the hook, but what it's going to do is it's going to bring that calmness back, as you say, whether it be through different breathing techniques or what have you. And that's what the better players really do when they're out in the golf course. That's why they're able to, they certainly are frustrated at times when they're hitting some bad shots, especially if they get more than one in a row. But they're able to take themselves out of that moment and get back on track or back on the horse, as I put it in the segment. A lot of the amateurs struggle with that, and this is where something that you've articulated, that yoga is able to help bring them back to a position that they can get back on the horse and move forward with their game, and not be caught in this cycle or this trap of negativity and not willing to sort of let go maybe that bad shot. Correct?
Absolutely. I have the great privilege of traveling all over the world and teaching side by side with some of the best instructors in the world, golf instructors. And I was with an instructor recently who was talking about a very high-level pro on the PGA Tour. And what he described about this pro is, he didn't say he's the best at fading the ball or the best at whatever. He said his greatest gift is he understands the concept of acceptance.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a very powerful statement. Some people equate acceptance with apathy. Well, okay, I'm just going to accept it. Okay, I'm a terrible putter. Okay, whatever, I'm just going to accept it. That's not what it means.
Right.
It means that what's in the past is in the past. And one of the things I love about golf is that every shot gives you a new start, gives you a new opportunity, gives you a new chance for success, gives you a new chance to learn something about yourself, right? And so acceptance, again, is a concept that we teach on a regular basis. When someone steps onto a yoga mat, very often they are into what I call the shoulds. Well, I should be as flexible as that person. How come she can do that or he can do that and I can't? I should be this. I should be taller. I should be shorter. I should be richer. I should be whatever, right?
Exactly.
But when you live in a place of acceptance and you see the beauty of what you are able to do, then it's encouraging to help you to do even more. And again, we teach this on the yoga mat, and then we teach how do you immediately equate that to golf. And again, it's a very important thing. Maybe it's a very important thing, again, that it's not apathy, it's acceptance, and they're not the same.
Right.
The more you accept, the more you are free to create even more of what you're looking to do.
Perfectly said. I couldn't have said it better myself. You're so right, and that is true. And I think that we have to have that acceptance in all areas of our life, not just our golf game, but really all areas of our life. And I think that this is one thing that we can all do better at, especially in today's climate, if you will, with a lot of stress.
Ted, I have a saying, Ted, which is there's much of my life that's none of my business.
Yeah. I like that. I think I may have to start.
Right?
I may have to steal one and start using that. That's my saying now. But
there's much of my life
that's
none of my business, right? And when you kind of let go of that, the struggle is exponentially less.
Yeah, exactly. So true. Catherine, tell the good folks listening in tonight to the program where they can get more information if they're interested in whether it be purchasing the DVDs or whether they're interested in maybe getting involved in some of your programs, or if they're, as you said, a coach, a swing coach, maybe they're interested in adding this to their repertoire, if they will. I know you do some certifications. Where do they need to go to get that information? And then we'll wrap up the segment.
Okay. So all of our information is on yoga for FOR golfers.com, yogaforgolfers.com. I'm always willing to answer people's emails, questions, comments, thoughts. Again, the live remote instruction is a very powerful way for people to get started. And they can email me at Katherine. It's KATHERINE at yogaforgolfers.com.
Perfect. Now, Katherine, I know we had talked before, and you had mentioned to me, and I'm hoping my memory was good. It does slip every once in a while, which means I need to step up my yoga a little bit. You also have a residence in Vancouver, Canada, correct?
I do. I'm very blessed that I spend May to October just outside of Vancouver, Canada, in an area called the Sunshine Coast. And I spend October through up to May in North Scottsdale, Arizona.
Best of both worlds. Well, the reason why I asked that is I wanted to close out with what I call this segment I call O Canada A. And this brings me to what I deem to be one of the most important parts of the interview, where some serious questions needed to be asked and answered by Katherine. And some of you, as I've just mentioned, obviously know that you are American, but you have residence and spend some of your time up in Vancouver. So I wanted to, with the help of some very high officials in the Canadian government, we wanted to put together a few questions to see if, in fact, Katherine has been Canadianized a little bit in her stay up in there. So, if you don't mind,
Ted, let me just say this: game on, eh?
Okay, so as I open up the sealed envelope, which bears the official seal of the Government of Canada, I shall ask Katherine these special questions in the hopes of uncovering the truth, whether she's got a little Canadian in her now. So, first one, obviously very simple. How long have you had a residence in Canada?
16 years.
16. Wow, almost as long as me. No, I'm only kidding. I didn't realize it was that long. So 16 years. Yeah. Boy, this is going to be tough for you then. Okay. Question number 2. When driving down the street, you see a Starbucks on your left and a Tim Hortons coffee establishment on your right. Do you accelerate and steer towards the Tim Hortons?
I make a significant hard right into the drive-thru at Tim Hortons.
Perfect. That's 2 in favor here. So it's looking like we might have a winner here. How many times a week do you frequent Tim Hortons?
Well, I was there yesterday. I was there yesterday on my way to the ferry going into downtown Vancouver. I drove through Tim Hortons. I will say though, I did not have a Timbit.
Okay. Well, that was actually question number 3. You obviously know what a Timbit is, and for those some of my American friends that aren't familiar with Tim Hortons, of course, that is a very well-known franchise in Canada. And Tim Horton, as some of you may not know, Tim Horton was a very well-known hockey player in Canada as well that died in a car crash some years ago. And I actually have been to the original Tim Hortons store in Hamilton, Ontario, which is where I was born. But anyways, Timbit, of course, is the center of the donut, which they make into a little round ball, and that's what a Timbit is. So the fourth question, is obviously you know what a Timbit is, and if so, are you only able to eat just one?
No, that's why I don't start with one.
Okay, good answer. Now, I already know, I got to confess, I probably can guess this one here. If you follow Canadian culture, Canadian history, the Mackenzie brothers, Bob and Doug Mackenzie, were a famous act some years ago. They came out of SCTV, which was a sort of similar to Saturday Night Live, was the sort of Canadian version. And they used to wear these lumberjack coats, and of course they were plaid. So my question is, has plaid become part of your wardrobe, Katherine?
No, and it never will.
Good choice. Okay, so we got one against. We've got 3-4 and 1 against. Now, this is also a very important question. I just wanted to have a little fun with you tonight. Do you find yourself adding the word "a" to the end of your sentences now?
Right? The answer to that would be no, but it is
okay.
Kind of funny because when I'm up here in Canada, I definitely take on more of a Canadian accent than when I'm down in the States. And recently, I was working with one of my baseball teams, and the player said to me, "Where are you from in Canada?" No, he said, "Where were you born in Canada?" And I said, "Well, I wasn't." So, you know, I'm. Let's just say I'm a proud resident of both countries.
Perfect. Good answer. And my last one is really just out of a personal. Have you had the opportunity to ride any of the Via Rail trains yet?
I do take the SkyTrain from the Vancouver airport.
Okay. Well, that's kind of the reason why I asked that is you may or may not be familiar, but Via Rail has a train that goes through the Rockies that has in its club car.
Well, the answer to that is no, because I didn't know what you were talking about.
Okay.
No, I have not done that.
Yeah. Okay. Via Rail has a special train that goes through the Rockies, and it has a glass ceiling on one of the cars, and it's very beautiful. And I'm planning on doing that myself here in the near future. So, answer is no on that. So we've got about 50-50. So as I compile all the stats together on this quick questionnaire, I see that the verdict is still out, and the results, of course, bear some further scrutiny. But if I know my fellow Canadians, it won't be long before we've converted her to Canadian status. So on that note, Catherine, I want to thank you very much for obviously playing along. But,
thank you, Ted.
Thank you very much for some great conversation, and thank you very much for what you do. And just one more time, if you want to read out that website, just to let the folks know where they can go and get more information on Yoga for Golfers.
Sure. So it's www.yoga4golfers.com.
Perfect. Catherine, thank you very much, as I said, for joining me tonight here on Golf Talk Live. I know the audience will enjoy our conversation, and you're certainly a true professional, not only to the game of golf, but just in life in general. And I've had the pleasure of watching you many, many times when you've done different programs on the Golf Channel, and I've actually seen you a number of times down at the PGA show in Orlando, and I'm not sure. Well, I'm assuming you're probably going to be there for the next one, so I'll try to make a point of coming up and saying hello in person. I knew you would. I actually listened to. I wasn't here last year, but the year before when I was there, I actually sat in on one of the segments that you did while you were in Orlando. So a great asset to the sport. And
thank you, Ted. I appreciate it, and you as well, my friend.
Thank you. And continued success, of course, with MLB too. I mean, that's fantastic. I like it when you can cross over into another sport as well. So it's not just all about golf. It's about life in general. And thank you, Catherine, as I said, for what you do. And we're going to turn you into a Canadian yet. A few more of those Timbits and a few more Tim Hortons coffee, and we'll be having you say A at the end of every sentence. I guarantee it. Catherine Roberts, thank you very much. And,
thanks. Okay.
Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you soon. All right. Bye-bye.
Okay. Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right. It was my very special guest, Catherine Roberts, the founder and president of Yoga for Golfers. Great individual, just a true professional. I can't emphasize that enough. And I want to thank also my Coach's Corner panel. Some great discussion tonight. John Hughes, Tim Kramer, and of course, Jamie Leno Zimron. Thank you very much, guys and gals, for joining in on the panel discussion. It's always a pleasure to have some true professionals coming in. And obviously, I enjoy doing that segment. And as I mentioned to the panel earlier this evening, I want to take the Coach's Corner panel in a little bit different direction what I have been. We certainly want to invite you to continue to email in any of your questions and comments about the program, but also if you're having some troubles with your game, we're going to help you too. We're not going to shut you out, but I think that we want to also be able to help in other areas that I think that golfers will benefit from, and that's why we have great guests like Catherine Roberts on the show as well. And again, thank you for coming on tonight. Just a quick thank you to some of the sponsors. Jonathan Laird of South Coast Golf Guide. If you want to get yourself a copy of that, go to southcoastgolfguide.com. Great publication out here in the southeastern part of the United States. Meredith Kirk of Meredith Kirk Golf. You can go to meredithkirk.com, get more information about her and some of the great programs she does, and also the Junior Exchange, golfexchange.org, I believe it is. Get some clubs in their hands. Nikki and Tiffany Litherland, thank you for all your help in spreading the word about the show. Mr. Bernie Pinder from Ontic Golf. Go to onticgolf.com. Great line of custom designed putters, which I'm the proud owner of. Mr. Sean Kelly, owner of linkedgolfers.com. Lots of great information on that website as well. Thank you, Sean, for all your continued support. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Peter Doyle of Doyle Golf Solutions over in Ireland. Great master club fitter and teach professional as well. Peter, thank you for all your continued support. On behalf of my guests and obviously all of you for tuning in each and every week, thank you, God bless, and have a great week. And I will see you next Thursday right here on Golf Talk Live.